So for those who don't know me, my name is Dr. Dion Klein, and I will be presenting this webinar today on how to prevent burnout. I feel I'm a bit of an expert in this topic because I basically burnt myself out, I think probably about 4 times over the past 20 years because I just wanted to make sure I got the whole process right. I advise people don't do that. It's not very productive over the span of time. And what I learned through all those various times of really just literally burning myself out and to the point of that I really could not function was identifying the warning signs along the way. And there's a difference between being fatigued and being just totally burnt out. Fatigue, we can wake up in the morning and just feel a bit tired, like maybe we didn't have a good night's sleep. But exhaustion, or that burnout, is when we wake up and we just feel totally exhausted, like the body just will not move. And that happens on a day-to-day basis, over that period of time. And that's when you really have to look at yourself and going, what is actually going on here? So a little bit about me. For those who haven't hooked up with me on LinkedIn, please do so. Just search my name and you can find out a lot more about me there. So let's move on. Just some stats to put things in perspective. Burnout is one of the few mental disorders recognized by WorkSafe Australia as directly caused by too much work, and it contributes to a $20 billion stress bill that businesses foot each year. That's a lot of money, and this was in 2012. And I know for a fact that that dollar amount has been increasing over time. The psychological and physical problems of burnout employees cost an estimated $125 billion to $190 billion a year in healthcare spending in the U.S. Now that's a recent statistic by Gartner in 2017. And from Statistica, 13% of adults have problems unwinding in the evenings or on weekends. So look at yourself, how long does it take you to unwind when you come home from work or even on the weekends? Can you actually relax? This just puts it in perspective. So whether you are an employee of the ones being burnt out or an employer to which you might also be becoming burnt out, where do you fit? Are you one of the statistics? And if you're not now, hopefully you will not become one in the future. And by taking on some of the stuff I'm going to share with you today, I'm sure that will at least help decrease that possibility. So the 3 major sources of stress, this didn't quite come out right, is money, workplace relationships, and family relationships. There you go. So money is the biggest source of stress, followed by our work responsibilities and even the relationships within there, as well as our family responsibilities and relationships as well. Money is the big one. When I talk to couples or even individuals, money always seems to be that one stressor that not many people can get away from. So ask yourself this, and these are really critical questions, right? Do I no longer have the initial enthusiasm that brought me here in the first place, right? Whether it be your workplace or the relationship, whatever. Is the paycheck the only reward? So are you just showing up for the money? Do I feel angry if I'm asked to do any task? Do I find myself delaying making daily activity plans, right? That motivation to be productive. Does my family not enjoy my presence anymore? Your family is a pretty good benchmark. They're a good thermometer of where you're at. Do I daydream of a different job? Basically, are you present to the different job that's not existing versus to the job that you're already in? Do I feel a sense of despair when I think about the future? Nothing to go to, nowhere to go. And lastly, do I dread going to work in the morning? If you've answered yes to a majority of these questions, I would just take a serious look at that you may possibly be on the road to burnout. If you basically could resonate with all of these questions, then I would definitely keep your ears open and take on board what I'm about to share with you. You can burn out because of personal job expectations and work relationships, work overload, lack of feedback, right? There's a lot of that burning up and also burning out, right? Maybe the organization's management style or physical work environment's not good. So when I talk about burning up and burning out, you know, when we see a fire, it usually is a slow burn. And then eventually it erupts into this major forest fire. And it's the same thing when we burn out, is that it has those slight embers and it's just slowly being fueled, right? And that could be your work relationships, maybe that overload, that's one thing after another, and next thing it just all comes upon you and you're just done, you're spent. So what is burnout? Okay, so burnout from an academic point, it's a response to the chronic emotional strain, and it's that chronic aspect, okay? Emotional strain of dealing extensively with other human beings and possibly life in general, right? Burnout will erode at your productivity, the quality of your work, and your attitude about your job. I come across a number of people and they say, you know, if it wasn't for people, I'd have a really great life. And that's even that saying is a telltale sign that they could be on the road to burnout, because people are supposed to be fun. You know, I hope that when I'm around people, I brighten their life and vice versa. But if you're starting to see that people are just starting to wear on you in a particular workplace or home life or whatever, you really have to look at that of where's that pain, where's that emotional strain. And I can guarantee, having been there myself, when burnout starts to take hold of your being, your productivity will decrease, the quality of your work, and really your attitude about your job, and even overall about life, depending on what stage it is, it won't be very pleasant. So here's some physical signs, all right? Physical signs: increased blood pressure, coronary heart disease, a poor immune system, decreased resistance and resilience, and that physical exhaustion. That's a picture of my companion, passed away a few years ago. But that's just look on her face that, man, she just had a big day and she's tired. And how many of you have that? And it's that physical exhaustion that you really just can't get up, which is quite different from going for a hard ride or hard run where you're physically exhausted, but you can recover from that. When you have these physical signs of burnout, it's that recovery that's just really taking longer, or it may never even really occur from that exhaustion. So identify your physical signs. The mental signs and symptoms, right? That change in professional goals. The psychological withdrawal from work, you know, of how you're really responding with people there at work. That negative attitude for life in general. Is the glass half full or is it half empty? Depression. Depression is one of the biggest challenges right now in our healthcare system. Even years ago when I worked, we had clients in public service. It was amazing how many people were on antidepressants. And it just seems that that's the fix now. It's just give them a pill and you'll be able to deal with life. And then that mental exhaustion. Once again, you know, how quickly can you think? Or is it becoming really too hard to make a decision, to think mentally about anything? So where are your mental signs? Are you showing any mental signs and symptoms of burnout? Emotional signs, okay, just emotionally exhausted, maybe where it's too heavy to cry. You can't even think about bringing the energy to cry or to scream or to laugh. You're just, to a certain extent, you're numb. You're emotionally numb. That can be a very strong telltale sign of burnout. That inability to empathize with patrons or colleagues. You know, it comes back to that feeling numb. You have no highs, no lows. It's just level and no feeling whatsoever. And you could be at the other side of the coin to where it's everybody else's fault, blaming others, right? And that's another sign of not being responsible for your own actions, right? Because it's almost like even being responsible for your own actions is too much responsibility. Social signs and symptoms of burnout. That feeling of isolation from colleagues and the profession, feeling that you just don't fit in, right? Maybe you are rude without even knowing it. So that change of behavior, that maybe you used to be that very happy-go-lucky person, and all of a sudden you're displaying these actions or even words of rudeness, and it's out of character for you. You're feeling that sense of being irritable, right? There's just some underpinning. You're just feeling a bit angst, maybe a bit aggro, and just looking at, well, why is the reason for that? What's triggering it? No time for colleagues or activities. That could be that you feel overworked because you have too much on your plate that has to be done. It could also be that you feel that that you don't want to put the time in to be with those colleagues or those activities, going back to that feeling of isolation from colleagues in the profession and maybe your friends and relatives and family. And depersonalizing everything, that there's no connectedness to anyone, right? So these are some signs, the mental, the physical, emotional, and social signs from that you may be suffering or on that path to burnout. So how do you recover from it? Once again, you need to identify what contributed to it, right? It's always finding out that source. For workaholics, it's usually the work, all right? How much time are you spending at work? Are you there because you love it, or are you there because of having duty, feeling that there is a duty to do it, or maybe out of fear that if you don't get it done, there will be there'll be ramifications from your boss of not getting it done. You need to be honest with yourself. And this is really challenging when you're on the road to burnout, or you have actually hit burnout, because you have to do a lot of self-reflection and you have to take on that responsibility and that self-responsibility. And when we shared it before, that sign of, well, you're always blaming others. When you recover from burnout, you really have to take it on board that you contributed to this situation. You need to have an in-depth assessment of how and why it happened. And it goes back to replaying various activities and finding out what those turning points were that started you to go down that burnout path. What self-esteem needs were you trying to meet by your choices and decisions? Women that are working and also have family and they're the mom, women try to be superstars, and I'm not saying that they're not. They definitely are, from all the things that they try to juggle, but they're very prone to burnout because they won't take time out for themselves. And I remember when I was presenting on this, I would say to them, you need to talk to your partner and say, I need some help. I need 2 hours to myself on a weekend to go to a spa, to catch up with the girls, or to go for a walk, even each day, taking at least a half hour of time out. So when your partner comes home from work and it's time that your partner take over the family duties, at least for a half hour, to go out and decompress from the day of taking care of the children and work, and vice versa. This goes for the same for men who are playing the house dad, the role of house dad, and maybe your partner is going to work. We all need that time to decompress. So that self-esteem of I can do anything and everything 24/7. The fact of the matter is, we're all human, and we all will eventually have a breaking point. And this can be quite challenging to people to admit to. Perfectionists are another group of people that really struggle with this the in-depth assessment and looking at that self-esteem. The biggest challenge about the recovery process is not blaming others for it happening. We're all big kids. We all can make our own choices, and that's the thing. It's looking at what choices did we make along the way that this somehow crept up and happened. So recovering from and also preventing burnout. The first one is laughter. You gotta have a sense of humor. Don't take yourself so seriously. It's a real important one, right? So laughing with friends, having that really great belly laugh that tears are coming from your eyes. I know when I catch up with friends and we have one of these crying from laughter episodes, it's quite invigorating, all right? And usually afterwards we all go, well, my gosh, we needed that, just to release, all the energy that was inside. So laughter is really important. I spoke about this, knowing thyself. Socrates said we need to really know ourselves. What makes us tick? What are the trigger points? What am I doing that isn't working for me anymore? And taking that time out for yourself, right? It's very easy to say, oh, look, I know myself, what makes me tick. But if you really sit down and reflect on maybe even your patterns over a period of time, are you doing the same thing over and over again? And if you're not getting results, I think it was Einstein said, all you're doing is you're creating insanity for yourself because you're not making any inroads. Finding things, these what we call stress relief or stress reduction encounters or activities. So it might be going to the beach, it might be knitting, it might be going fishing. Now we have a lot of coloring books that they call it Zen coloring, and it goes back to just stopping and being present and filling in between the lines. So it's going on these type of stress relief excursions, whatever they are. Some might have to go to a resort island for a weekend just to force that break. But look at, where is your stress relief? What activities can you do that just break up that monotony? Have mental health days. I'm a big proponent of why call in sick. Just call in and say, look, I need a mental health day. I'm feeling really burnt out, really stressed. I'm not going to be productive anyway, but I feel if I just take this day off and spend it for myself, when I come in tomorrow, I'll be much better and much more productive for the organization. Having a support network is really important when you're coming from and you're trying to prevent burnout. It's important to share these stressors. And I think now today, there's not as much stigma on various mental health issues. The government has put a lot of time, energy, and funds into it. And finding out who your support network is. It might even be strangers that, you're just talking about these various things, or it could be close friends or coworkers. Doesn't matter who it is, but find your support network, people that you can call on, and also kind of, be mindful of your behavior. And they might say, look, I've been listening to your words, and I think that you could be burnt out, or maybe your energy has changed, and it just seems you're a bit down or you're a bit off. That support network is very, very helpful. Taking a break, taking that time out, right, is very important. And you have to monitor, like I know myself when I was going through the burnout process, if you will, is monitoring how much break did I need on any given point in time. And it came back to really understanding what the triggers were and really doing a reflection of, well, how was I feeling physically, mentally, socially, emotionally? And then that dictated what kind of break I needed, right? Enjoying life, just having fun, taking some time out, doing crazy things. Might be, going out with a friend and being silly. For some of you, it might be going to a theme park. But the most important thing is find something to do that is enjoyable, right? That becomes very important. And do it on a regular basis. Don't wait to the point where you're already on that slippery slope of burning out. Do it before you even get on that slope, right? The other one, and this has been shown that this is probably one of the most activities that make an impact, is exercise. It can be stretching, it can be walking, getting more massages, which is a good one for me. I love that. That's a big way for me to monitor myself. So I try to get a massage at least every week, even if it's only a 20-minute massage at the markets. It just is a message to myself that I'm taking time out for me, and this is important for me. Meditation is becoming more important nowadays. More people are doing it. And, there's so many different meditation audios and videos online that if you don't quite know how to meditate, you can just go online, find a meditation, maybe only for 10 minutes, and you can learn how to meditate. And just once again, stopping for that period of time and taking time out for yourself. Saying no. This is another good one. You know, so many times, especially women, once again, they, at least what I've found in doing my discussions, they really have a hard time saying no. And that becomes important. So look at all the things you've said yes to. And when you do say yes, reflect on the feeling that you had after you said yes. If you said, yeah, I'll do it, and you go, oh my gosh, when are you going to find the time? Well, you've just triggered possibly a way to burnout. If you go, yes, I can do it, and you know deep in your heart you really want to do it, and there's no kind of negativity around that, then you probably made the right decision. But saying no is very, very important. And when you say no, for some of you, it may be that you need to explain why you're saying no. Look, I really can't do that right now. I have way too much on my plate, and I just feel that if I said yes, I wouldn't be doing justice to what you want me to do. I wouldn't do a good job. And when you explain that, I think people will appreciate where you're coming from. Saying no is a big one. And if you have a problem saying no, you may just need to put it on your hand and show people the hand. If you actually can't verbally say no, let the hand do the talking for you. Avoiding burnout. I thought that this was a very interesting statistic. And you can see this, the best ways to avoid burnout as of February 2017. And it goes by age. Those who are 18 to 29, and depending on where you fit in your age group, you can see if this is actually congruent with you. But you can see that most of the 18 to 29-year-olds, they say that the best strategy is to have a hobby and exercise. Exercise is number one, having a hobby is number two, and having a stable family life is number three. Whereas the 60 years and older, according to the graph, a stable family life is very important to them, followed by, you can see here, having a hobby as well. So just look at what is your way to avoid burnout. What activities do you need to have? Do you need vacation? Do you need having nice coworkers? You can see that hasn't been that high compared to exercise, the stable family life, and having a hobby, as well as taking enough vacation days. You know, it's nothing to be proud of to say I haven't had a vacation or a holiday all year. Here in Australia, we're given at least 4 weeks holiday. Take them. You deserve it, for sure. The most important advice to give from recovering from and also preventing burnout is basically to live life. Live life to the fullest. Because we only have one life to live, so we might as well live it to our fullest capacity for not only ourselves and also to our friends and to our family. And if we can work at that optimum by always being happy and loving and productive, those people around us will experience that life as well. So thank you very much for your time and listening. I hope that you have some great takeaways so you don't get to that point of burning out like I happen to do. And I'm willing to take questions as soon as we stop the webinar. Thanks very much and have a great day.